Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Ashley Robinson. I'm the editor of the Alberta Seed Guide, and I'll be acting as your host for this episode. On today's episode of Seed Speaks, we are going to talk about autonomous tractors in agriculture. In the last few years, more autonomous tractors have rolled onto fields around the world. These new tractors are smaller, and while they require supervision currently, there's hope that someday they'll roam fields. They'll roam fields by themselves. Kinks are still being worked out, but are autonomous tractors the future of agriculture? We have a few guests here today to discuss this with us. So thank you to Dominic and Roy Maki for joining us today.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And to those watching, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have for our guests in the chat box. So let's start with getting to know our panelists. Dominic, if you could please tell us a bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominic Wakas, Director of Strategic Programs here at Raven Industries. And Raven is a company that's been focused on delivering precision ag technologies for several decades, and more specifically, focused on delivering autonomous solutions over the last couple of years. So excited to talk with you more here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Roy, thank you for being here. And can you tell me a bit more about yourself and the Smart Farm at Olds College?
Yes, I'm a project manager for Olds College. So we run projects that look at applied research, and Olds College has what we call the Smart Farm, where we look at how technology works in agriculture, and we use the technology, we learn about it, and our mission is to promote it. So one of the main projects I'm leading is autonomous ag equipment in agriculture. So that's what is making a big influence on our smart farm. The smart farm is now, I believe, 3,600 acres of a living farm where we're able to run a farm, and we try to run it and operate it like a real farm as much as possible. And then we're able to run all kinds of different technologically projects involving technology applied to agriculture.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think this is going to be a great conversation. So let's launch into it. So Dominic, I know at Raven there, you guys have an autonomous tractor called Omnipower. So can you tell me more about it and how it works?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Omnipower is our autonomous power platform, and it allows for you to interchange the different types of implements that you're utilizing. Today we have a seeder, spreader, and sprayer that's available in that power platform. And it really lets the farmer remotely operate and send the unit on autonomous missions through coordination on a tablet. There's no driver necessary. The farmer loads an appropriate implement into the power platform, uses a tablet or a mobile device, and it generates a path plan for how the robot should go through the field. The plan covers every foot of the field and gets you down to sub-inch accuracy. And that really starts from a boundary and then mapping out obstacles, et cetera, within the field. From there, you load the mobile plan onto the Omnipower in about 15 seconds. And away it goes, right? The farmer can observe and coordinate with the machine at any time, but it will fulfill its mission kind of from start to finish from there.
Thank you. That's so interesting. And I know over at the Smart Farm, Roy, you guys have been using Omnipower for the last few years and testing it. So can you tell me a bit more about what you guys have learned about it and how it works?
Yes. The first thing to know about it is that it's supervised autonomy. So that means you have to be present near or beside the field when it's operating, basically operating it in line of sight. So that's the first thing that you learn what it's about. So basically you will manually move it, and you move it with a remote control operation. So you have to manually move it into a field location, and then you launch it in its autonomous mode for a field operation. I guess the big thing that I can say is the technological readiness level is high enough where we're able to use it for broadacre operations on our smart farm. And the other big thing is that the technology is mature enough where we can take students. Last year we had 3 students that had no exposure to autonomy, and some were very new to the whole agricultural industry. And by the end, within 2 or 3 months, they were capable of operating this equipment. So I want to stress that the maturity level of the technology is there for to be used for broadacre farming. The first year of operation was 2020. We were able to operate it on over 2,400 acres, 34 field missions, and the longest hands-off time in 2020 was 1 hour and 17 minutes. We learned a lot about the equipment, and for this last year in 2021, we actually doubled the acreage that we covered. Our longest uninterrupted operation was 5 hours and 16 minutes. And I believe we had to stop to refuel the unit. So that was a planned stop. Another fun fact, as I like to say, is in 2021, the machine operated 128 hours hands-off time, so uninterrupted time. So that's like 10, 12-hour days that it would free up an operator that you could use the time. Even though it's supervised, that's free time that you can have to do the things that you need to do in your farm. I think like management, make the phone calls you need during office hours instead of 10 o'clock at night when you're sometimes that happens when you're busy doing all the operations you need to get through the farm. So that's where I see autonomy opening up, is frees up office time in the field.
Awesome. And that was really good to get those stats on how long you guys have been able to use it by itself unmanned. That's really interesting. And of course, another interesting point that you had there was how easy it was for those students that had no previous experience working with a platform like that to be able to learn how to easily use it. And I guess so far, of course, we've just been talking about Omnipower, but what are your guys' thoughts on autonomous tractors currently available? And are there any other models out there that interest you or that you've tested or worked with yourself?
Yeah, I can go first if you'd like.
Perfect.
Obviously, being from a company that is creating an autonomous machine, I'm a little biased. And I think that our Omnipower and Omni autonomous solution stacks up really nicely with other models and companies in this space. But what I can say is we do keep a pretty keen eye on the different folks in this environment. And we see tremendous diversity in approaches, from custom machines to retrofit technology to go on to maybe more traditional machines, from small bots to large bots, and really everything in between. So I think it's a really exciting time and really interesting to see the creative solutions that are coming on the market today.
Great answer. And Roy, was there anything that you'd like to add from that more kind of researcher standpoint?
Yeah, I see a lot of growth in the small robotic. A lot of them are battery operated electric vehicles used in orchards or small intensive operations in gardens. So a lot of growth there. Looks like a lot of players coming in. It's smaller scale, but I think what we'll see is the scalability of what we learn from those technologies. A lot of things like, picking fruit, picking walnuts, things like that, to spraying, things, small robots that go in between the rows and can do a lot of in intensive farming practices. But we're going to learn a lot from what they learn, and I think that'll be scalable to broadacre farming. There's a couple on the market. John Deere's coming out with their 8R. They talk a lot about perception work, and perception is basically what your eyes and ears when you're in the tractor, and the ability to make decisions based on that. So be interesting to see how well that plays out. I believe that was rolled out in January. So I've got my eye on that to see what I can hear and learn about that. There's another interesting one called Nexet out of Europe, and it looks like they're kind of targeting controlled traffic, and that's where you drive down the field and you use the same footprint or track path every time. Just try to minimize compaction and things like that. So be interesting to look at that. So those are two that have sort of caught my eye, and again, there's lots of smaller ones for the gardening market.
Yeah, super interesting. I know there's so many out there. I did a story a few years ago, and I remember we really struggled to find any that had, one, commercial launches, and two, that were easy to use and stuff, because people have been trying to make autonomous tractors for so long. We always, of course, want robots to do our work. I think I remember growing up in the early 2000s, and people would you were watching shows like the Jetsons and stuff, where everybody has, and that was made how many years ago? Everybody wants a robot to do their work for some reason, and now we're all scared of it. And yeah, so I think, I think that plays into my next question that I want to ask. So what do you guys think the timeline is on seeing a more widespread adoption of these autonomous tractors or similar models across North America? Because I know there are some farmers that are excited and have purchased various units to use, or are working with places like yourself, Raven, to get these into their fields. But we're not seeing a widespread adoption yet. So I'm just wondering what you guys think is a timeline in the future that we'd see that.
I'll go first, and again, this is just a guess on my behalf, but I think we'll see it advance a little bit more in the orchards and the smaller garden areas, or intensive farming practice on smaller plots, non-broadacre farming. So I'm going to say we'll see it be 25% adopted in the next 5 years, would be my guess, in the smaller scale. And I think for broadacre farming, it could be really advanced by things like labor shortages. So we may be forced into adopting it faster than we need. But I think it would be aggressive. I'm going to say 20% adoption over the next 5 years. And I think that might be an aggressive estimate on my behalf.
Yeah, and Dominic, what do you want to add?
I see the opportunity pretty similarly. One thing that I would just point out is we tend to draw a pretty rigid line between what is autonomous and not autonomous operation. And in working with customers, I think it's much blurrier than that, or fuzzier than that. And so, I think it'll be hard to measure 5 years from now who's running autonomously, because I think there'll be a lot of additional tools and capabilities that'll be available to them that'll start to kind of blur that line. And we believe that all farmers can benefit from kind of understanding where they are and their readiness for autonomy today, and starting to work themselves to a higher level of automation or autonomy readiness, so to speak. But I think we see good momentum in the market. There's a tremendous amount of interest in learning and embracing it, and so we're just positioning ourselves so that we can deliver on those desires and needs from our customers.
I think that's really interesting. And I just kind of want to go off a bit that you said there about there being that blurriness of what really autonomy is, and that you guys, of course, work so much with customers to be able to help them with their needs on their farm. So can you just tell me a bit more about what that blurriness is? Because I'm guessing it's something to do with like what full autonomy is, to being able to have something and maybe just be able to still be on your phone checking emails or something at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe an example. So if you get a state-of-the-art combine today, you're able to the combine itself automatically adjusts settings on the combine to maximize either throughput or productivity or yield, grain loss, those sorts of things, based on the intelligence that's kind of built within the machine. We know that GNSS-based steering solutions have been around for a long time as well. So we keep simplifying the operation of machines and automating more and more functions. And so there's a pretty distinct line of getting the operator outside of the cab. And I think there's tremendous value. Roy was alluding to, maybe working on some of those other tasks, or even if it's just minimizing the wear and tear in your body of not having to roll through a field and being able to work from the confines of a truck at the edge of the field or outdoors. I think there's benefit and value. All the while, we have to provide agronomic value along the way. And so I think that's where the stair steps happen, is through delivering that incremental agronomic and efficiency gains as we get to the holy grail that everyone thinks about is the tractor drives itself out of the shed to the field, sets up and does all of the work, and then returns home when it's done. I think there's many steps along that journey that we'll be able to deliver value to customers.
That's really interesting. I think that's a great point when we're looking at even reducing wear and tear on farmers' bodies and stuff. My dad's an old farmer, and his body is definitely not as good as it should be. And it's just crazy to think if he had been born 50 years later, how it would have been going through his farming journey, the assistance he would be able to have with some of those things, like with the combine being able to automatically adjust and stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think I want to play and ask an audience question right now. We have one from Sonia Begeman, and I think this is more playing into, of course, full-on autonomy. But for companies looking for more autonomy, are there additional insurance considerations that they should look into to protect themselves and their employees?
Yeah,
well,
tackle that one from your perspective. I'm happy to chip in if you'd like.
Yeah, today I'm not aware of it, but I'm aware of standards coming into play, and those will drive the need for insurance and other things like that. It's starting. There are regulations, templates, and some work done. Australia has provided some guidelines already. As an example, I don't think we'll see it. It'll be in stages. Like Dominic was talking about. It starting up and leaving the yard and going to the field and back, well, that means it's going to run on a public roadway. That will be quite a while, and that'll be driven by regulations. So I think today I'm going to say no, but it will be coming as autonomy advances.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, the liability inside of a field, there's a lot of, just acknowledging there's a lot of dangerous things that farmers do today. And with the safety systems that we're putting onto the systems today, we feel like we can safely operate and navigate, and there's redundancies and fail safes in place. So certainly running an Omnipower machine doesn't have the same risk factors that a PTO shaft does on other implements and things. But I would always encourage any to-be customer to work with their insurance company to make sure that it's covered under their plan. But not seeing a lot of uniqueness in terms of coverages that have to be added or extended from our position.
Interesting. And I think that plays into, I feel like we see in a lot of the mainstream news and stuff, always the question about insurance companies are always asked, so how are you guys going to insure driverless cars? Because we see Google and like Tesla and stuff testing those. So I think that plays into that conversation, but it's just, of course, not the one that we're seeing in the headlines because everyone uses a car, not everyone uses a tractor. And my next question I want to ask is, what opportunities are there for autonomous tractors or any of this autonomy that we're talking about for use in row crop and seed research?
Yeah, I'd say we're very focused in the row crop area. And when we think about opportunities, it's really looking at the entire crop production cycle for row crop and the tools and steps that a farmer has to take today, and how we can use technology to further automate and bring autonomous solutions to market. So that's kind of the sweet spot for where Raven's focused today.
And yeah, of course, Roy, maybe you want to add something on because, of course, you are researching these, but we work at a college and everything, and I'm sure there's people that are testing new crop varieties and stuff. So how does the idea of like autonomous tractors and stuff work into when we're seeing some of those new seed varieties getting tested?
Well, it's the repeatability. If you're doing multi-year studies and you want to make sure that your test plots are seeded at the same depth, speed, the conditions the same year after year, as an example. It takes through automation. You can run the equipment the same way you did last year. So and then the year before. So you can take the human error out, and also. You're always we do a lot of work with students, so the students a new group of students every year or two, so automation kind of helps control the variables that you need to control year after year for doing seed research, as an example.
That's a really good point because, of course, we're always, I know when I talk to researchers and stuff, that's always the worry is recreating the same variables. And, of course, we can't control all the ones, aka weather. But if you can, the more variables you can control, the better your study and research is going to be.
Yeah.
And I want to take an audience question now that I think plays into this question that I just asked. It's from Alex, and she's asking, what recommendations do you have for growers or seed companies researching autonomous tractors? Any characteristics or specs that they should look out for when they're trying to find one that would work for their operation?
I think the technological readiness, it's a scale from 1 to 9. That's an indicator of how mature the technology is. So that's one indicator you could look at. Find out how testimonials are another thing that you can look at, and just find out how where and what applications their equipment has been used on, and make sure that it's similar to your needs.
Thank you, Roy. And I think I'll change this a bit up for Dominic. When you guys are working with customers, what are they asking, or what things are you guys trying to highlight to them to make sure that you're fulfilling their needs with the products that you're selling them?
Yeah, I think technical readiness is a great example, but I would start with just what's the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think making sure that it's anchored in, whether it's labor, whether it's consistency, whether it's better agronomic outcomes, but starting with that and then kind of working backwards. There's a lot of interest in autonomous machines, but I think autonomy for the sake of autonomy, or just as a way to get started, is probably not going to yield the results that everyone's looking for. So I think it's making sure that we can deliver value along the way, and how that specific person would measure value, I think is the starting point for the conversation.
That's a great point. I think you really, and playing into your answers before and stuff, is that we have to look at, there's a million different autonomous things out there and different gadgets and stuff. So just because one looks really cool, it may not be the one that works for your operation and what you're trying to do there. We have different pieces to solve each problem almost there.
Exactly.
And I think just this is maybe coming up on my last question for this discussion, but what's on the horizon for autonomous tractors, and what other tasks may they be able to do on farms in the future?
I think go ahead, Roy.
Okay. Dominic, you may have a different view. I just have ideas. You obviously have client feedback, and you probably have more of can talk more to this, what the real asks are. But I think we're going to see things that operate for environmental conditions. To give an example, I think we'll see Omni sit out in the field ready to spray. So when the wind comes down, it launches by itself, or maybe it'll route the field so you minimize the spray drift, or get the spray drift going into the field and not spread around, and perhaps change nozzle droplet size or boom height to control basically operations based more on environmental factors. That's good for broadacre farming. So I think we're going to see that. Maybe we'll see it be an autonomous field sensor, so it'll go around and take soil samples or weather data or any kind of soil data needed for the field. And Dominic, here's a challenge for you. Maybe we can make Omni a cowboy. We have cattle on the farm, so I want to see it someday round up the cattle.
Oh, that's good. Well, the great thing that I've experienced in our journey so far is job security, because we have decades and decades of opportunities within the agricultural space to really deliver value and deliver solutions. And so my colleague here at Raven draws corollaries to the space race in the 1960s. Like, there's just so much happening, and there's such a huge impact that we can have on the agricultural footprint from a global standpoint. So I see tremendous opportunity and a long runway for more and more things to happen over time. So we're just scratching the surface. We started with seeding, spreading, spraying, and harvest, and there's much more to come.
That's great. And yeah, I like Roy's point there at the end about we got livestock that tractors also help out with. So
Exactly.
Definitely be great to see that. And I know there's some farmers, especially I'm based up in Winnipeg, where of course it's very cold. So I'm sure there's some farmers that would love to be able to just have a tractor go out and deliver those morning feedings when it's like minus 40.
Yep.
Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for discussing with me. I feel like we could go on forever about different topics. Discussion was really great. So I just want to thank you both again for being here with me today.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in. And if you missed part of today's live stream, don't worry. We'll have it available on demand on Facebook and YouTube and on our various seed websites. And if you have any questions about this subject or ideas for future topics we should tackle, please send us a message to the Seed World's Facebook page, or feel free to reach out to myself. And next week on Seed Speaks, my colleague Alex Martin will be hosting a very special episode where we will be collaborating with the Canadian Spud Congress to talk about true potato seeds and what they mean for the potato industry. So we hope you'll join us, and thanks, and see you next week.